Good evening, everybody. I'm Henry Lucas, the chair of the Design Media Arts program. I'm happy to announce our second lecture, and I'm happy to announce Animal Charm. They were on our list to invite for a long time, and couldn't really get hold of them. I don't know how that works, but I was at a breakfast at Mocha for the Urs Fischer show, and they happened to be friends of a very good friend of mine. So that was, from there on, we were able to invite you. I pulled a short text from the internet that probably says more about how you guys started. And I've borrowed these words, so my apologies. Animal Charm is the collaborative project of sound and media artists Rich Bott and Jim Fetterley. Animal Charm began creating videos as an act of electronic civil disobedience, diving the dumpsters of video production companies and scrounging through countless hours of industrial, documentary and corporate video footage. Animal Charm often edits the tapes in live mix performances. By re-editing images derived from a wide variety of sources, they scramble media codes, creating a kind of convulsive babble that disrupts conventional forms with subversive messages. Animal Charm.
Thanks for coming out. We have about a 45-minute presentation of video here, kind of spanning from about 1995 until the present. We pulled together a compilation around 2006 that was from 1995 to 2005, and that's what this menu here is, this first screensaver. It's a menu to our DVD, Golden Digest, distributed on Craig Baldwin's label Other Cinema DVD. And we were just going to start with a video and then let it roll for a bit. It's called A Slideshow of Memories.
I'm Rich Bott, and this is Jim Fetterley, so you know which one. Don't get it mixed up. Just kidding.
It
It
happens
happens a lot. Anyway. So, yeah. Okay, so that weird thing was like, that was kind of like a scrapbook of me and Jim's travels in the 90s with the VHS. That was our old setup, kind of like we used to use stacks of, I don't know if with the lighting, okay, over here maybe this is better. Like we used to use like stacks of VHS players and analog mixers and stuff, and kind of travel around with a briefcase of VHS tapes and, you know, mix between them. And that was before digital cameras, so we, you know, had all these crappy, out of focus, you know, analog photos of that. So that was a feature on our DVD, a wistful memory of those times.
We kind of wanted to start it off soft.
So we're gonna play the first video. I mean, maybe I could talk about the background of like
talk about how we even got
me
to
and
that.
Jim. As you can tell, we're just kind of freestyling over a small outline here. So, like me and Jim met in 1989, going to the Art Institute of Chicago, and went to art school then. So, but we didn't start doing this Animal Charm project till 1995, after we graduated around 94, and we studied like experimental film, because, you know, back then there was no non-linear digital editing. It was just reel-to-reel cassette video or actual film still, like 16 millimeter. So we kind of learned in that, you know, environment. And then around 95, Jim was working at Cartemquin Films, which is a documentary place in Chicago. They made that film Hoop Dreams. They're kind of more like political activists, kind of. But they had an Avid back then, which is one of the first digital editing systems, which was like 50 grand, you know, like a gigabyte cost like $5,000 back then. So artists weren't really working with that, you know, at least unless you were super wealthy, I guess. You know, maybe, I don't even think Bill Viola was rocking an Avid. Maybe he was, I don't know. Anyway, so we would go in there at night, make our video, and then have to immediately get it off the hard drive and bounce it down to VHS to try to work with this new nonlinear editing. I mean, which you're all young enough to just probably not just take that totally for granted, that you can just go anywhere. It's not a linear. Anyway, I'm going to stop nerding out on that. But so this is the first video we made. It's called Sunshine Kitty. It's also very forward thinking about the love of LOL cats. And this is 95. This is VHS.
Yeah, this is 1995. And this DVD has a compilation of many of these VHS 2 to 3 minute videos, which we would have to off-put at the end of the night or in the morning. So we found ourselves with 10 to 20 2-minute tapes, and the way we would pull off a performance was by playing them A-B in a VCR mixing console. So before we did that, we first started cutting them up online, and this is the first experiment where we just decided to go to a library, get a couple educational tapes, and add to the learning experience.
Don't spoil it. Just
Sunshine kitty, looking so pretty, sleeping in the window all day. waiting for your master to come home, so Sunshine Kitty can play in Kitty's way. Sunshine Kitty, looking so pretty, here comes your master now. Anxious to hold you and pet you, anxious to serve you, child, right now. Sunshine Kitty, you just may be the sunshine of my dreams, treating you like a princess, but your prince I could never be. Don't you see? Sunshine Kitty, it might be silly, but you make my life complete. Being my furry companion, watching late night TV, here with me, here with me. Sunshine Kitty, you look so pretty with the sun shining from your eyes. Knowing I can always trust you, you never ever tell a lie, and that is why. Sunshine Kitty, it's such a pity people can't be like you. It sometimes makes me wonder which one of us is master to who, me or you. Sunshine Kitty, I sure like you. Sunshine Kitty, I see you like me too. Sunshine Kitty, we've got us a thing going. Sunshine Kitty, Kitty.
Okay, that was Sunshine Kitty. That was unreleased until we had this DVD in 2006. That was kind of our first one, but we're like.
And we just thought it'd be interesting to show tonight with kind of where it lands. With time, you know, just the first thing you do is you start looping, then you go backwards and forwards, you zoom in, reframe, and Rich and I, during school, had seen all the canon of the avant-garde kind of cinema, and Video Databank is housed at the School of the Art Institute. So we had many models that we were trying to either mock or imitate, and it was quite exciting to do at 2 to 5 minutes at a time. In a performance, that might only end up there in loop for 3 or 4 times, but in whole, you're looking at the single channels without being performed. The next one we're going to show is maybe 2 years later. We just kept doing this until we got quite a collection. And by 1996 or 97, we had enough to do a full hour show. And this next piece called Stuffing ended up kind of traveling from the festival circuit and had a moment to stand on its own as a single channel video and didn't require performance. And I think you'll see the difference between that one and this one.
And this one actually, I mean, excuse me, this one, like, we made it to kind of perform with, but then it ended, like you're saying, it was a standalone video, and it actually got into a film festival. Menu. Like, because when we first started, we were just doing this at night, and it kind of started as a project. We were more interested in music. We weren't, because Jim was talking about what we studied in school, but when we kind of got out of school, we weren't like going to art openings in Chicago and going to like experimental film screenings. We're more going to like music events, you know, because Chicago in the early 90s had a really awesome experimental music, and still does, experimental music scene. So I feel like we were kind of more influenced by experimental computer music and noise music and stuff like that in the early 90s. And this having this technological ability to just take pieces and randomly assert them and erase them and copy, delete, paste, that new ability with video and sound was like, we wanted to see what we were hearing in music visually, you know, and we were kind of like, we're just going into this place at night and doing it, not with like this kind of concept, like, yeah, we're gonna make detritus and appropriate and the rhizome of recontextualizing the, like, it was more like, let's just get fucking crazy with it. Like, look what you can do with this computer. And like, well, what about that John Oswald track that sounded like this? I just kind of want to give that background. It was like 95. We were kind of more, we went to art school, but we were kind of like more going to like loft parties and experimental music events than like galleries, which I think is a very different.
And a lot of the critical stuff kind of was attracted to us by doing this work. People would say, have you heard of the Electronic Disturbance by Critical Art Ensemble? Or have you checked out the work of so-and-so? And we kind of found a community traveling around to festivals, to parties, stateside or abroad, to kind of inform it. But it wasn't until we kind of just decided to keep going in our own direction and not let it affect any of our exhibition or production making. So this next one, Stuffing, you'll see is quite different and very similar, 1997.
Okay, so that was Stuffing. Oh, please clap. Was someone clapping?
Let's laugh and clap.
We
Let's
still need
laugh and clap.
validation. Like, so that one won. The reason we went to it's kind of why we came to California too, because we were living in Chicago, and that won the Golden Gate Award at the San Francisco Film Festival. We're like, wow, we've never been west of the Mississippi. Should we go? This is like '96, and so we went there, and then we ended up coming down to LA to drive, to see someone we knew. And it was like, whoa, this is awesome. So that was also an impetus to kind of take this work more seriously, because we kind of really weren't taking it, I don't know. We weren't really taking anything seriously at that point.
It's also where we got
we're like 27 at that point, right? Like, I'm 20.
We got to also meet in person Craig Baldwin and inhabit his world
for anyone who doesn't know, he's like an older found footage filmmaker who studied under Bruce Conner, who's like credited with the first found footage film in the 50s. So we got to meet him, who was that's something we actually were into, and was like awesome,
And at this time, these videos were picked up as short single channels, and we laid them out on the video. These 5 shorts were released as a volume on Video Databank's New Works by this time, and that was an odd experience because we would do one at a time, and they would say, do you have more than just a 2-minute video? Because at the time, duration and scale, which is something that's very different now, small videos, the length of a pop song without an internet, didn't really go viral, but we were able to lay them off, and at our shows hand out VHS tapes, and that kind of got us into a tape trading circuit of DIY, every different type of culture, but the one thing that glued it together was video cassettes and audio cassette tapes.
I mean, at this point too, it's like there were a lot of, is it macro cinema? I can't remember the name anymore. Micro cinemas? Is anyone? Micro, right. That's how dead they are. Like, but it was like, a space. Someone would set up a cinema and, show experimental weird artwork, because there was no internet to no YouTube yet. So it's like you'd actually end up meeting people and traveling to Baton Rouge, Louisiana to show your videotape and meet other freaks doing experimental video art, and I don't know, that was in the 90s, and it was cool because you actually socialized and met people. But wait, why am I so because I wanted to move into, we're doing these single channel things, and then we got into mixing video because we had gotten this, we called it the wedding mixer. It was like a Videonics, with star, hi.
That's gonna happen a lot.
Star wipes and rainbow fades, and like in a wedding video. So we were traveling around, and we were like, oh, what if we could just, because we're just showing our videos over and over. We're like, oh, what if we could show Sunshine Kitty before Family Court? Change the order of how we presented things. But it's like, oh wait, we can put the sound of this video with. Oh, wait a minute, we can start mixing video. Whoa! So we kind of went into this totally lame way to
All of a sudden, our suitcase of 20 VHS tapes became a infinite amount of different experiences every single night, and it was as if we were at the edit suite, free jamming on ideas, but doing it live in front of an audience, and that converged with the parties getting bigger and the music getting weirder and not just dance music.
Yeah, it's kind of video saxophone, kind of like improv, VHS improv. So we kind of started moving to that, and then what's the next thing you're going to show?
We're going to go ahead and get into what basically was this piece here. I'm going to bring the sound up. You've seen some of these images before, but it's at this point had been cut into something. In 2005, we were at the Media Archaeology Show at Aurora Cinema, which is a big micro cinema in Houston, where they would invite from all corners of the world different people that were collecting and mashing up various archives. And at this point, we just took a 10-minute live segment, and we'll just watch it with a little sound up, and you could either yell out off, on, or we'll pick a time to stop.
Wow. 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 Wow.
That was like a live mix. So we were actually like, you know, using an analog video mixer, and like I would take over the soundboard and mix like 4 channels of audio. We like, you know, like a sampler and a Casio and a mini disc player in the early 2000s. But
And it's where we kind of were able to break out of a loop and more look at what the content is, and it really invited us into a variety of different spaces, not just art or cultural, but putting up videos in various locations that we'll go into later.
so the next thing we're gonna play, because you know at this point we started getting like attention, you know, like whatever, you know, as video art's a weird place, but like, you know, the video data bank, which he's referring to, I don't know how many people are familiar with the video data banks, but it's like a distributor of video art at Art Institute of Chicago. Like, it's kind of like the biggest one in the world. So like ever since video art's been around, it's kind of like, you know, the collection of video art. So we got approached by them. They started distributing our work, and then, you know, festivals start looking at your work and putting it in festivals and galleries and museums. So we kind of started getting a little known and traveling around, and then we got contacted by this and then we moved to LA in 2000, and then we got contacted by this advertising agency for Nike. And they're like, we're working on a new shoe called the Presto. It's for soaping. Does anyone know about soaping? La Parkour, you know, like where people skateboard with no skateboard, jump off walls and stuff. So Nike was making a new shoe called the Presto, and they go through video art saying, oh, this is hot, this is fresh, let's sell shoes, you know, like. And we had just moved here, we were flat broke, and I mean, we hate corporate, you know, we're just like, especially then, like, fuck that, we're not gonna do that. I'm like, oh man, the money's good though, dude. Like, let's do it, you know. Like, but it's all found footage we're using, and we're like, we can't. That's not our footage. We can't license that. They're like, what? What do you mean? It was sort of like, you don't even get what our work's about, obviously, because it's found footage, you know. Like, it was like some footage of a postal conference or something someone gave us, and like, we're like, oh, we can totally reshoot that though. We can, you know, or we'll edit. We'll get
We'll get clearance.
Yeah,
We
I don't want to
basically
ruin the
promised that we
video.
could
Let me.
open the
I just
we
want
could
to set
open
it
the
up. Like
floodgates.
that's why we made this video.
And they hadn't done their research to see that we had already hooked up with a lot of copyright infringement and illegal art organizations, mainly based out of San Francisco through Craig's Other Cinema and those various other cinema screenings. So next we'll show Street Shapes, what we surprised them with. We were also into graphic user interfaces.
5 Prestos.
Yeah. That ended up being contractually obligated for them to distribute. So the way they got around it was putting it as an Easter egg, track 13 on their promo disc to tastemakers and fashionistas.
People would never see it. But like the thing for that too is like I kind of ruined. I was trying to make it a surprise, but like we shot all that and like did all the sound, so it was totally our copyright, so we could sell it to Nike. That's how we got around, basically ripping off our own found footage video by shooting it.
And many of our friends had been contacted by the very same Weeden Kennedy in Portland at the time in the late 90s. They were kind of data mining any creative sources for sound and image or moving image with sound. And we kind of shared with all of our colleagues at the time that we were able to sell out on ourselves with ourselves. And they didn't distribute it, which was kind of a crowning achievement given it was January and February of 2002. So we made a particularly prickly piece that they would have a hard time to take. The only reason I bring up that date, because obviously the events that happened the previous fall inform the next piece, which is going to jump forward now to 2011. And I think we started off with some fun cat stuff, and it's still fun, but we were asked by Ariel Pink to do another commercial project 10 years after his initial composition made on made on September 11th, 2001, and completed in December, and then released in September 11th, 2011. He had a 17-minute track that his record label wanted a music video for, so we obliged, and here's an excerpt of that.
It's called Witch Hunt Suite for World War III. It's 17 minutes, but this is only a couple minutes. So.
Is that all there is to the fire? No.
So yeah, there's an excerpt
that's
of
a
Witch Hunt Suite
excerpt of,
for World War III. You can watch the whole thing on YouTube. It was a YouTube-only release, actually, that Ariel put out to go with the album, but it was never put on MTV. They don't show videos anyway. But so what's next, Jim?
Well, I wanted to just talk about that was one big loop, obviously. So our loops got longer, the music got weirder, digital editing was in full effect, but we're still using the same crap: dirty keys, semi-glitch video, and hopefully the dark humor that's got us started. The next pieces are basically stills from as early as last 2-3 years. In Los Angeles, we've also expanded out into just traditional gallery exhibition spaces, and we wanted to show UCLA what we did for Made in LA, the Hammer exhibition that happened 2012 in June. We happened to get a room at the Barnsdall, and we created a 2-channel video installed here, which was something new for us. What was not new was that we kind of used the same source material, edit style. Anything you want to add at this point? I've got a couple other images just back and
so
forth.
it was a 17-minute piece of like 2 videos that played along a diptych that played together, and had audio. And we also had the other room, which is you were facing those 2 projections. This was behind you, this other small chamber. We were calling it the silo, and like it had a projection on the floor. And then we made these contact prints with actual VHS tapes, like inked them and rolled them through a letterpress kind of thing. So they were like embossed prints of VHS tapes. Like that was in the other room. And I think Jim's going to show an
We
excerpt,
decided
right?
to stick with not just the same editing and the same crap VHS cut-ups, but since the whole show was about archives and the work that we do being just marginalized as found, we went back to our favorite actor, Patrick J. McCarthy, who stars in this piece. And
I was gonna introduce that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Patrick was a friend of mine that I worked with at Art Center back in the early 2000s. He was the maintenance guy, and he was my friend. And he was in the first video, Street Shapes, in 2002, and then we brought him back in 2012. So you'll see a little Patrick J. McCarthy.
Part of yours.
Wear a condom.
Always choose a condom.
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 Use protection. Use protection. Use protection. Use protection.
I mean, condoms rip, condoms tear.
That was what came after Patrick. But yeah, that was only a couple minutes of a 17-minute adventure. called All Night Water. So what are we going to show next? Oh, so yeah, so now we're going to move into more like what we've been doing recently. Like, well, that was only a year ago. I guess it wasn't that long ago, but in the last, I don't know, 5 months or so. Well, this is one thing. We made these sculptures out of VHS tape, like large VHS tapes made out of VHS tapes, and
We
painted
started thinking about scale and resolution and using the actual bricks as pixels. So here a 9 by 3 grid of VHS tapes, or 27, become these large kind of towering tapes. We also got friends together and we painted spines and labels of actual tapes from our collection.
So they're kind of like portraits of actual VHS tapes in our piles.
There's us proudly holding the Cap 2K, the Millennium Bomb, and the Animal Charm handwritten VHS that you can see here. There are 2 tapes you'll see up on the top too. Turns out that those are the guy with the tape on his eyes at the end of the Ariel Pink piece where he's rubbing bandages off. He ended up being in a tape that we used a lot in the occult, kind of often throwing it in whenever you want to make home movies seem like avant-garde cinema. You just add the occult. And that tape over there, New Age Secrets, was one tape that he started off with that very ritualistic performance, and then he tears it off to like a Miami Vice blazer and a crystal and said, the only thing that's changed is the costume. And he now is somebody that is working to deprogram people out of the occult. And there's gold mine of footage throughout that whole tape, not just the piece we used for the Witch Hut Suite. Turns out, while we were working on Made in LA, there were dollar store copies of this Y2K bomb VHS that people would give us. We bought, but we never opened. It seemed not of our flavor. And we finally opened it to find that here he is in 2001, proclaiming to espouse on the dangers of Y2K. So we opened that tape, popped it in, and saw that he was actually back to his old tricks of selling snake oil and not just preying upon people and deprogramming them. He's back to programming them. So weird little side note. The other thing that we did at this performance was we called it Kill the Archive because we really got sick of our VHS tapes and we didn't want to be just kind of consumed with VHS.
Me too, because when we started in the 90s, like VHS was a current medium, you know? It wasn't all nostalgic.
So we literally
it's
had
kind of like, oh, it's all about nostalgia, right? The 80s and 90s. And no, actually, that was.
So we literally took all of our gems and our footage that we've ever kind of squeezed anything out of and made it available, like the top 5 buckets of our gold bricks. The ones that we didn't make into those sculptures, we gave away, crushed, had a party, threw them away, had people fall down drunk, and left them at Synchronicity Space there in Heliotrope for people to put into Everything Is Festival or Cinefamily Archive or whatever else that people might want to do, that we kind of had our time with them.
So this, so now we've been kind of getting interested in, and maybe this will play more to the program too, like we're, the whole phenomenon of video mapping, like it's like, we've started to, use video mapping and kind of break out into 3-dimensional space with our content. It's kind of not like the content you usually see in video mapping scenarios, but like, so recently we've been doing that. So that's what Jim's gonna.
And we also happen to think about it the way we thought about VHS was that we didn't just want to add to the canon of found footage with just making more of the same type of found footage. We wanted to just use video mapping and its kind of pervasiveness in a way that's our own. So a lot of experiments were kind of done on our own, and an opportunity came here at Assembly Project where there's a Vern Blossom painting exhibition. And he was a painter that had an exhibition here in LA and simultaneously in Los Angeles this past September. And the reason you could see his paintings here, Giant Expiration, he painted these mundane objects from 1961 to 1963, and they were sold to museums through Leo Castelli Gallery as part of the preeminent proto-pop art. But what happened was that museums found out that he actually was a farce, and he wasn't really a real person, not showing up to his own openings in the 60s. And most recently, there have been scholars like William E. Jones that has discovered who that is, and the paintings have now entered back into the art world for sale. So the curators of this show, showing these mundane stop signs, mailboxes, and parking meters, asked what we would like to do, and we always wanted to map paintings onto paintings. So the next couple videos are loose documentation of most recent experiments doing that. So you could go to the show and ask for the Animal Charm Super Show and ask for it
I
animal
thought it was
style.
animal style, yeah.
Animal
You see the show
style.
animal style.
And the gallery attendant would turn the lights off and then hit the projectors, and you would see some of these next experiments. We'll just flip through a couple of these. You kind of get the idea. The rooms had 6 paintings, and we went ahead and just kind of went through and threw up kind of the stuff that we felt would add to what would contemporize. And
On the gallery was across from a Del Taco. That needs to be known. So people are actually eating Del Taco, even though that's Taco Bell. It's not Del Taco.
we also got interested in just the architecture of that line being where you can actually flip the taco and it goes on both walls, but you don't lose perspective, which is kind of not what a Trompe l'oeil map would be. We're trying to actually do the things that may not have been thought of because they're not that interesting or something. But the fact that it's a huge taco is completely delicious.
That's a chalupe.
That center wall divides the two rooms, and you can actually see the paintings sticking out in the shadow, so that we would try to isolate edges from the actual projection. So we only got perverse with the mapping and these very minor around the edge of paintings or frames within frames to kind of show off our mapping skills. A lot of people thought that Vern Blossom was just a strategy artist, and we made quite literal maps at times when we weren't throwing chalupas. To this day, it's not known who it was, but those paintings are back on the market and quite expensive, and sold quite well recently here at Assembly and in New York. Our video maps are still for sale. It was nice to go to an opening and be in the dark, and not just be in the video dark of projections, but also have paintings. This is the last one that we kind of took this into an idea of just getting more expressive with the maps and not following the architecture or the painting frames. And at the same time, we had an opportunity to go to a cinema festival called Festival de Nouveau Cinema in Montreal this past October. And we had proposed a video campfire. And Rich will explain that. It kind of turned into a fun workshop working with the venue and some raw materials that we just had to pull together. We asked for a video campfire where we described it, and we ended up with a pile of like birchwood logs and had to come up with how we were going to map that.
The idea was, I mean, we were talking to the film festival, and I was kind of sent them like a pencil drawing, like, yeah, we want to do this video campfire, like where people would sit around it, and, you know, we'd, it'd be 360. And we were doing like a live mix of the imagery onto
got
it.
the
You know, so
chalupa.
it was like an hour-long performance. There we are. And so yeah, we got there and they just kind of had like a pile of wood and a bunch of. They're like, "Do you mean wood like from the forest?" And they had gotten it from the forest in Montreal. It was like, no, but that's kind of awesome. So then we like, we actually had a team of people helping. We could fly the projectors from trusses, and so it really seemed like it was illuminating like a fire. Like you couldn't, because we're mapping it. We could just trim the edges out so it just totally fit the shape perfectly.
The birchwood logs were around the edge and a nice touch to kind of give it its expressive.
And there's also a lot of people
campfire.
because for some reason someone got like a bunch of Montreal high school students to come. So there were like 80 high school
Held
students.
captive.
So it really was like meatballs, it was like summer camp.
They
the
got, on the
teenagers.
got off the bus and walked into this. And there's an amp inside of that emanating the sound, as we also generated that live.
So it had a kind of soundtrack for the center, and then like we were hooked into the house sound.
But we put our own video on it. Students came up to us, asked us what we were doing. We were just sitting behind, as you could see there, at laptops. Some of the feedback that was great were people asking if we were throwing tumblers into the fire. And I think in the future we might recreate this, asking people to give us media to toss into the fire or do whatever. But we really want people to turn their backs on the movies and not sit in total attention. The next clip is an iPhone kind of easy documentation, low quality, but it gives you an idea of the sound, and it was a really nice atmosphere, like you were sitting around a video campfire. You could tell we just put up a couple 2x4s, some of which we found from the street nearby, and we spent about 6 hours walking around looking for a fabric store.
What was the name of that place? It was like
Johnny Fabrique.
Mondo di Fabrique.
Oh.
Yeah, we did like negotiate fabric with a lady.
Yeah, the whole trip was about finding a sheet 9 feet by 25 to wrap around wood we didn't have. But in the end, it all came out and looked great. So.
Oh, and we had to set it up, map it, and then move it all out of the way, and then reset it up because they were having some cocktail party. So it was totally crazy for if anyone does video mapping. Like, you don't want to move stuff.
We set it up for 3 days and then had to break it down 2 hours before the festival. So we turned it into like a folding umbrella for a sunbrella, and just walked it off and then walked it back, and it got even more expressive. So I think we ended up getting into a zone which we were really comfortable with, which was kind of sloppy, loose, chaotic, and then we just made it kind of our own flavor.
Yeah, I mean, it was a cool exercise and experience to kind of, approach video mapping from that angle of like an expressionist kind of video mapping about being not precise and letting chance operation take over and kind of, I mean, I don't know how familiar people are with it. I mean, a lot of the work of video mapping is very very specific and like, man, we totally animated these holes. It's like, check it out. Like this being more like, screw it, there's a square, hit it with some crazy shit. Like let's, what the fuck? Like just don't even plan it. Like totally unplanned video mapping. Just go in and make a mess, like guerrilla style. Because you can buy an old video projector now for like what, $100 for a standard def, hook your laptop up and just go splash some stuff all over something.
We were even taking the Vern Blossom video maps and try to put it on this object just to see what happens, and it's not that spectacular, but we learned that. If you're to put them on the wall, they're just, it looks like a little office room that's been cut up and chopped up, and we don't have interest in those formal concerns, but we went through all of them. The next work is most recently from 2 weeks ago opening, and it's still up. It's here at China Art Objects, or formerly China Art Objects, which is now International Art Objects, over off of Venice and La Cienega. The show was called Pet Shapes, and we were a shoe-in, given that we do this content.
And we have a video. We have one video named Pet Programming and one called Street Shapes. We're like, dude, you're ripping our titles. This is perfect. Pet Shapes.
So at first we thought we're going to cut those videos together, put them on some sort of display. And then Rich shared with me that he had 2 large screen displays from where he works that had been kind of put out. They're scratched and weren't going to be used for exhibition anymore. So we knew we had a surface. We weren't going to be projecting. We were going to use a large screen, flat screen monitor. And at first, we had some beach chairs and thought, perfect, we're going to put a couple retired flat screens on beach chairs with a Corona in between and kind of really pun this out for art installation. And then the video we could fill with whatever we want. The gallerist on the studio visit said, we've already got a chair in this exhibition. If you sit in it, it meows. So do you have anything else? So we went ahead and we built an 8-foot tall I guess an easel and covered it in carpet as if it's a cat scratch easel.
Cat scratch easel.
Cat scratch easel here. So more into our forays of
But the title
art
is
making.
Calico.
Calico.
Just Calico.
We went and scrapped carpet enough. We couldn't get enough of the same color, so we ended up with 3 complementary cat colors.
But these are, the guy at the carpet place assured me these cats can scratch this carpet because there's
carpet
some carpets would hurt your cat, but a cat could actually use this.
And then that
you want to buy it, and you have cats.
So we had that object. We had the flat screen, which we found. We actually have a scratch on that screen, so it kind of was all coming together. And if you can tell, we've put this whole presentation together in one big circular fashion. You could trust us, whether it's intentional or not.
That's like 8 feet tall?
And then I'll show you the video that we put on it next, which is silent, and that's not what we usually do, but we could talk over it. It's just a close-up of carpet. We don't know if that's actually cat scratch carpet or safe for cats, but it worked in the framework of having that used monitor on the cat scratch easel. Now we're taking the role of artists as cats as artists. Cats are everywhere. So
Human pets.
human pets. We kind of just use the most basic of video effects now that we got kind of spinning around, mapping flat surfaces of carpet on carpet. Kind of looks like chalupe mix carpet. And then, of course, you know, we had to bring back the chalupe and the various Taco Bell inspired images because they kind of look like cat food or dog food or carpet.
The beef looks like carpet on the chalupa. Beef carpet.
That looks like chalupa cheese too, kind of like a pizza.
Oh, sorry if that was some kind of pun.
And like all of our videos, given that they're short in nature, we didn't want to just like hold you captive and not pay off. We already spent the punchline, but put a proboscis monkey. We call it the proboscis payoff, which will be coming up. It's not really ruining it, but for people that didn't go to this lecture, that go to the gallery. This is the first time I thought about it, but it's kind of like our own skinning of an easel, putting carpet on it, and these surfaces being carpeted. I don't know.
Amen. It's freestyle. Let's go for it. Waiting for this payoff, though. It's gonna come, man. When you see this
We've lost the
proboscis
shape
monkey,
of the screen. It's no longer a flat screen. It's a flat shape.
people also ask me if that
Looks
was
like
pizza.
Event Horizon or some sort of Mars rover.
I mean, it's weird. We never watched it just as a movie. It's part of this sculpture, so it's kind of.
And we put it on here. It's 25 minutes long.
Yeah. 10 more minutes.
I don't know how to fast forward in Keynote over here.
Well, now it's like we're the monkeys in our older video, the sleepy shafaka and stuffing. It was like, oh, there he is. Woo!
Double whammy.
Poo! Poo!
Chalupa and proboscis.
Yes!
Matching color scheme, complementing
Right?
shapes,
That's like carpet inside
slow
that.
motion, zooming in, spinning mapped monitors, monkeys and cats, animal charm.
Okay. Maybe that's
Just 17 more minutes.
next. Catch the other 20 minutes at the gallery.
We do have the power to pop to the next one. So this happened on the same night simultaneously at a gallery in Koreatown called Private Island. And we only had that other monitor. So we
And a
went
little bit
ahead-
of carpet.
a little bit of carpet. And we created an installation of a drop shadow carpet for another proboscis. And this opening ended up being much more fun for people who had been to both. It seemed to be a portal or tunnel between the two art worlds. Private Island, former show cave, rides that fine line between a gallery that goes past midnight, while International Art Objects is that art world that you may or may not know that's over on Venice and La Cienega. And the proboscis can go to both. And we use that as a tunnel between the two. Even Manny, what's the dog's name? Maggie's upset now, leaving. But that's the end of the formal presentation.
Yeah, I guess.
And we're open for Q&A now at 7.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
And during Q&A, I'm just going to put on silent some of the places that we kind of use as studios, which are more of those parties and doing visuals for various events that'll just be going on in the background here, and we'll go between two. So anybody have any questions, concerns?
Is anybody worried? All right, oh yeah, that's at the Dub Lab 14th anniversary. That's this guy Sunara. So he's kind of did a very expressionist mapping for the room.
And the chulupes remain.
Oh yeah,
That's kind of
boom.
our studio.
That's all
where-
sound activated, so it's like. The chalupa.
Trying to put a new flavor in some sort of psychedelia, funky jams.
Anyway, so yeah, Q&A. Yeah, questions.
Steal this mic
Let
from
us share
you,
this
and
one.
then you guys have to share this. Anyone with a question? Mr. Leonard.
What do you? I teach, and I know that if some of my students were here, they would say, like, how can I do what you do? And I wouldn't know what to tell them. And so I'm asking you, what do you tell people when you do these kind of things? They say, we want to be just like Animal Charm.
That never happens.
I think part of it is just it's a show and tell between Rich and I, so it's not singular, it's not one person only. So I think get a friend, start a conversation, get out of your bedroom. No, I'm just kidding.
Which is a good follow-up. How do you, you guys have been friends a long time, and I'm sure, like any friendship, there's some ups and downs, maybe. How have you maintained a strong collaborative all these years?
Well, I had to move to Europe for a couple years, and then I missed him after I hated his guts. No, I don't know. We I don't know. It's weird. I guess we're lucky that way because people ask that a lot. They're like, I really want to collaborate with someone but I just can't. Like, how do you guys do that? And it's like, I don't know. We're just friends, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it's kind of, I think that's the answer. We're just friends, and we met at a young age, and we experienced a lot of stuff, and we did have times apart. We weren't always living in the same city, but.
And to have a friend where you can actually, when you're creative, you're kind of crazy. You're like going crazy on yourself, or if you have another person, you could either call them on, hey, you're going crazy, or take me with you there. So it's kind of a shared experience of getting into what would require a lot of introversion for myself to just be by myself and get to those places. So I think a lot of it is tolerance to be able to get, yelled at or told that that's stupid or wrong or not being judged, but just in terms of like a creative free zone. You could kind of go there and someone say, no, you can't do that because of this, this, and this, because we've shared 20 years of experiencing art and culture from students till now, and it happens to be while a time an internet has developed, so these ideas have kind of happened not just outside our conversation, but in the world. So there's a lot to bounce off, and it's just having, I guess, a non-competitive camaraderie of...
I got some add to that, too, because I think it's touching on what you're saying. When we first started, too, it's kind of like this project, we called it Animal Charm and not our names because we wanted to be kind of free of our egos. Because back then we had this idea, it's like, oh, if it's not us, we can do whatever we want. We're not responsible. We can be purely creative, So it kind of, I feel like it wasn't, a lot of times when people creative, it's like, I'm Rich Bott, the artist, and you're Jim Fetterley, the artist. Let's come together. But Rich Bott does not do that. Like some kind of, and we eliminated that from the beginning. It was just kind of like, we're just going to get fucking crazy together and someone else.
A lot of the first videos that we were able to dip into that were really exotic were like Florida timeshare videos. And I never knew about that outside Chicago. Like, what the fuck is a timeshare? And you apply that to working art, it's pretty fun. It's like a surrealist game. It's like we have this other body, this avatar. It's also another strategy in the contemporary art world to have an alternate identity. We went for a good go to be anonymous, and as bad a word as it is nowadays, it was really, really bad then in that it just got no attention. They wanted to put a name and a sticker and a tape and a package, and as anti-corporate or commercial you wanted to be, it needed to be distributed. So at first, this tape says, our name of the band at the time was Janet Anglo-Saxophone Jackson Jr. And it's a white tape in a pink case. And
Inkjet label.
Inkjet labels. And we were okay with, like a band, we didn't care, just like, call us that, sure. And then I think it just went down the line of just, okay, we can accept it if it's called like a band. That's not us. We're in character doing that. But then we come to these events, or we do these events very earnestly.
And nobody could remember that name. They'd be like,
Yeah.
what's your Saxa Jackie?
Saxy
What?
Jackson phone style. And that came out of knowing about things like plunderphonics and other sort of audio experiments of hyper plundering of words and language, which led to knowing about literature, just word of mouth, having a friend that could be like, have you heard of the Alupo? It's like, no, what is that? And still don't know thoroughly, but was able to read a book without the letter E and just have that instead of comic books. We didn't meet at 10 and share Batman or Superman kind of culture. We kind of came together, two people that didn't quite come from the same class as everybody else, economic class, and we bonded over that at a very private fine art school and learned to cope with being around people of other classes, literally, economic classes, and have someone to actually say, why are we doing this if we end up in worlds we're not ever going to be kind of going back to if it's not this world that we came from? So it's having someone that can honestly call you on that and then help you think through and develop creatively meanwhile.
Other questions?
So this is a very simple. So you remember the moment when you came up with the title Animal Charm? Would be nice to hear if you remember. And obviously that rhymes with George Orwell's Animal Farm, which I don't think it's a coincidence. Is there something to say about that link with George Orwell?
Yeah, we had a...
Well, I'll start first. We often have been called...
Fuck you! It's over!
People are saying, hey, man, I know your videos. I love Animal Farm. And we just let it slide. But there was no incident at the beginning that's like, it sounds like... It's actually a Dungeons and Dragons spell.
Okay, yeah, well, I think it's like someone requested we had a different name other than Janet Anglo-Saxophone Jackson Jr. And like, there's this drawing, this image that we were really into that's from a Rod McEwen poetry book. Does anyone know Rod McEwen? One person? Two people? Well, he was like a popular poet in the early 70s who wrote poems about his cat, and he had a gravelly voice like this, I love you. Like his poems were like that. Anyway, so this is an image in his book. So we're just like, what is this image? Like, if we could come up with a title for this image, what would it be? And it was Animal Charm. You can't. It's like a peacock line drawing. I could pass it around if you want to see it. Maybe you could give it. And so then it's also a charm in Dungeons and Dragons. It's a spell where you get animals to do your bidding. Like, wolf, attack that man. Like I knew that because I played D&D when I was a kid. And then yeah, Animal Farm came up later. People just confused our name, but it was never like a direct reference. But then when the internet came along, we started searching for our name. And the only thing that would come up would be actual animal charms, like jewelry of animals. And still kind of that way. It's like us and them. And a movie that someone in England made with Boy George called Animal Charm. And we're like, what the fuck? Like, it was like 2010.
And a little backstory on Rod McEwen, which I really like, is that he had a career as a musician and like a songwriter and a singer. And he wrote with Jacques Brel and did kind of international male vocals. And he came up with a book of songs that Frank Sinatra challenged him and said, I bet you can never even sell that as a book of poetry to housewives in America. And he proved him wrong, and he's the most published poet, kind of coffee table published poet in the world. Stanyon Press to this day, great graphic design, some good words, and a great guy. We've seen him 3 times. We've gone 3 times.
We've met him. We've met Ron McEwen.
I had him sign $2 bills. 2 $2 bills.
We have time for another question. If there is one. I have one, actually. Okay. I want to talk about Made in LA 2012. Was being in Barnesdale your choice or the curator's choice?
Curator's choice.
It was curator's choice.
Wouldn't you rather be at the Hammer?
I don't. At first, yeah, we were like, "What the fuck? What is this, man?" You know, like
Second stage.
So I have to honestly say that I did not visit Barnstable. It was too far out. But so I
Hollywood,
missed-
too far. Hollywood.
I don't know where that is.
West
I'm foreign.
Sider.
I never go east of Hollywood.
We went and actually, we did a site visit and thought, actually, this is a better exhibition space. It's a public park. There's a theater next door. Maybe we'll jump in and do something there. I don't know what's going to happen here in the future coming months. So we just went with it. A lot of that whole exhibition was we went with it. We actually had planned mapping rules and kind of like what the exhibition proposal was. We showed up on the day of install after a year of planning, and they gave us 2 short throw projectors. I mean, that's about all you can do with them is get 4 feet off the wall and make flat projections. And we had expressive, strange objects we wanted to map, but we just went with it. We kind of got steamed and then thought, we don't want to be those type of people. We'll just go with it. And I think we did the same with Barnsdall, and it turned out to be very interesting because there was a piece by a friend whom we met at DMA in 2000 when we came and did a visit then, Rye. And Rye had a piece there where he took fake kind of pipes and created what looks like a palm tree out of VHS strips. And he didn't know we were doing our work there. We didn't know he was doing their work. And he ended up doing a VHS stamped print, kind of like we did our letterpresses. So there was just kind of a commonality of friendship and the synchronicity of having strange works.
I want to add too, because they, when they made that decision too, they put a lot of the video art in Barnsdall because everyone could have their own room. That was a major consideration. That's what they told. Because at first, we're like, "Hey, what is it?" You know, and they're like, "Well, then you can have your own room in Barnsdall." Whereas, you know, they only had a couple things that had contained rooms at the Hammer. Everything else was more like 2-dimensional work. You know, like painting, like classic, you know, painting and sculpture. You know, like, and then they put all the video work in the Barnsdall, which was also kind of a mistake because it was like a cement building, so everything was reverberating into all the other rooms, but. That was one of their justifications. That's what they told us, and it was kind of true. But yeah, we just kind of went with. We've always been adapters. Like especially when we started off, it'd be like, let's go do a show, and oh crap, you don't have an extension cord, and we have to do. You know, like we've always just kind of. It's been part of our practice, like adapting to the situation. So that was very easy and a nice gallery to do.
Maybe 2 more questions about that. One, what did you guys feel about being in that show? And the other question. Did you think you had a chance to win?
I'll answer
it was
one.
$100,000.
Yeah, go for it.
I mean, I didn't really have. I mean, basically, I just kind of felt like, awesome. We're going to be in a big exhibition. There'll be types of people that'll see our work that would never even know about our work because it's the Hammer. You know. Again, I was just trying to take a positive, you know, instead of being like, me, you know, like kind of, which a lot of other artists were like, I just don't like the way this is coming together. It's like, oh, geez, you know, there's only 60 of us out of all the artists that were looked at, you know. In fact, we weren't even like knowing about the show. We just got a visit. We didn't know it was for that show, you know, and then they notified us later, like, hey, do you want to be in this show? Whereas we have a lot of friends who already knew about that show, and they were trying to get into that show, and they were so angry when they didn't, and God damn it, I'm important, you know, like, and it's just like, God, it's so ironic that we didn't even know or care and we're in it. And so I just kind of looked at it as like, cool, you know? And then the money thing, we're just like, this is ridiculous, you know, like, but I'm not going to not take $100,000. Are you fucking kidding? So I hope we get it, you know, but then they made it so that like, you know, a team of curators picked 5 people that the public got to vote on. And I felt like if the public actually had got to vote on every artist, we might have had a chance, you know? We might have actually had a chance, but they selected who could even be voted for. There was like a thinning out into 5 artists. That's how I felt about it.
And then the part that I felt was equally funny was when they made the announcement. It was kind of like dun 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 dun. It's gonna be. It sounded like, and it felt like it was a very mediated event. So what we do is we deconstruct media, and here we are as part of it. And what do we want to do? Do we want to be classic culture jammers and kind of turn this into something? And it wasn't even that interesting at the point to want to address it as part of the work, even though that's kind of the first place we would go. It just was something where everybody knew there were a lot of eyes on the media and the promoting and the marketing, and we wanted to take, you know, a more mature and less critical approach to not have the content be about that. But we did kind of think that it was basically a lottery. I mean, I thought it was a lottery. I think it still to this day is a bit of a lottery when you have that kind of judged show. And it being the first one, and having many friends that did or did not partake, there was just a flurry of commentary and criticism that it became unfortunate that there was little talked about of any of the art within the exhibition at any of the spaces. So I think that competition just atomized any sort of like momentum it might have had, and it was a very powerful exhibition to be part of because it was just so much under a microscope, and being mediated in a way which we usually do not participate in.
Thanks for that. I think, oh, wait, more questions.
Hi.
Hi.
What kinds of things are inspiring your next piece?
Yeah, all kinds of things. We have 2 free flat screen monitors that are going to be out of exhibition in about a month. And we really like how carpet is feeling. So that last weekend where those 2 carpet portholes kind of happened was pretty inspiring. To make objects, to actually make objects and think of them as part of making media, and that there's ways of thinking about a construction and material.
To work with other people.
And to work with other people.
Work with like actual carpenters who know what they're doing.
And think of that as nonlinear editing to kind of get into the manufacturing of things that would just be objects we would want to frame our videos with. We often thought, after we learned about those short throw projectors, after getting them handed to us to deal with, that like a classic painting that has its own lamp, we might think of these movable flats that have these projectors jutting out on each side, but we would never make that. So it turned into an easel covered in carpet. So I think most recently that's pretty inspiring.
Yeah, kind of more, I think just kind of generally more like moving into like constructing objects, mapping environments, kind of, you know, maybe a human-sized cat condo with video. I don't know. We have a lot of plans. We also didn't have a studio for years, and we have a studio now, so that's a big difference to actually have a studio where you can make things. It was always like in our house on a computer, on the, you know, so that's a big, I think we just kind of want to hunker down for a while and just actually make work and, you know, try some new things out.
There was something we found online just when we looked up the history of mapping. There was a maker in 1992, whom I don't remember the name, but in this chronology, it went down as one of the early mapping where they created a white room, an apartment, and then videotaped people inhabiting it, and then replaced that with a projector and had it spinning. So there's this very low-res YouTube video of that kind of very expressive, early, non-architectural fake mapping of people getting in and out of seats, spinning globes, moving picture frames, that I think just got us intrigued to think about surveillance painting, where you're actually painting on things, but it's a camera following the paintbrush and that's changing the object, or the skinning of things. So those are 2 things I thought of most recently this week.
Okay. So my question is actually about the VHS, so which played such an important role in your early work and quite a long time in the whole aesthetics that you developed. And then we come to a point where the VHS disappears and you guys go to video mapping and stuff like that. So now my question is, what do you think about VHS as a medium? Is that as a medium now absolutely gone, or is there going to be a revival at some point, like there's been this huge revival of vinyl, LPs and things like that on many levels? I can say that, you know, when vinyl started disappearing and turned into a sort of like a, you know, like a musical instrument in a way at that point, and was replaced by CDs. I wasn't actually thinking about that kind of vinyl revival would ever take place again. So I'm sort of like I've been thinking about this VHS thing a little bit in terms of kind of potential parallels. So what do you think? Is VHS in a way an obsolete and disappearing medium now in many ways, now that even artists like Animal Charm are leaving that, you know, like getting rid of that? Or is there going to be some kind of a VHS revival sometime in the future?
I'll start this one because I'm standing here. There's a there's a movement with audio cassettes that's been brewing for the last 15 years that's kind of taken a head where people are actually releasing them like 7 inches. So audio cassettes aren't just art cassette culture anymore, that it's a viable, easily reproducible, quick, and dirt cheap. So you might buy a new artist MP3 and they give you a commemorative VHS a commemorative audio cassette trinket. And we were talking about this when we were building the cat easel. Is this good or is this bad? Will people start releasing VHS as part of their art video? And I went and looked it up, and lo and behold, some friends who we know, Extreme Animals, former members of Paper Rad, they're on a tour right now where they've kind of met a bunch of people online in their virtual communities, and they are going on a tour called IRL, or In Real Life, and they're releasing a VHS tape of that tour. And it made me think that, well, for the aesthetic, makes sense. I think for the time it makes sense because it's actually a non-digital format that's very well reproduced at a 640 by 480 resolution, and half-inch audio is quite good at that level. Major hysteria about digital kind of surveillance or what you can hold in media and what you can have. Perhaps collections on VHS might be the only way to end up getting a movie in your private collection that's not trackable. So what the loop of starting digital copyright issues and the VCR creating all these problems that led into digital problems, I think could also end up being a solution if there needs to be in a developing cultural economy for people to have copies. They're cheap, people still manufacture them. They're still manufacturing digital VHS, which is almost like digital 8mm. It's something where you can actually record digitally onto an analog magnetic tape. So my understanding of digital worlds and backup systems and hard drive archives and legacy file formats is that one of the cheapest, best ways is to get it on tape, data tape. So like data tape, I think AV tape is quite a good apocalypse medium after the internet has completely dried up or the communications are to be going back to tape trading and passing books around and meeting in rooms. And it doesn't have to be so end times. It could just be like now. We could have this stream on VHS also, and it's this little fetish object for $7 that some people might want to have and could be interesting. I don't know.
That's enough for me. That's enough of an answer for me. Thanks very much.
That's fun.
Thank you.